The automatic doors of Metropolitan General Hospital slid open with a soft whoosh, and 12-year-old Tyler Chen burst through them like his life depended on it. Well, not his life exactly, but his father's life, which felt like the same thing right now. His expensive sneakers squeaked against the polished hospital floor as he ran down the hallway, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. "Dad, please be okay," he whispered to himself, turning a corner and nearly crashing into a nurse carrying a tray of medical supplies. "Slow down, young man," she called after him, but Tyler couldn't slow down. Not now. He found his mother, Christine, standing outside the intensive care unit, her perfectly styled hair coming loose from its clip, her designer handbag clutched against her chest like a shield. She was talking to a doctor in a white coat, and the expression on her face made Tyler's stomach drop. "Mom?" His voice came out smaller than he intended. Christine turned, and for a moment her composed mask slipped. Her eyes were red, and she looked older somehow, like she'd aged years in the last hour. "Tyler, sweetheart, you shouldn't be running in the hospital. Is Dad going to be okay?" Tyler moved closer, trying to hear what the doctor was saying. The doctor, a tall man with kind eyes and graying hair at his temples, knelt down to Tyler's level. "Your father had a serious medical emergency. His heart stopped briefly and we got it beating again, but he's very weak. We're doing everything we can." Tyler felt tears starting to burn behind his eyes, but he blinked them back. His father always said crying didn't solve problems. "What can we do?" "There has to be something." The doctor exchanged a look with Christine before continuing. "Your father needs a blood transfusion. The problem is he has a very rare blood type. It's called AB negative with a specific Rh factor variation. Less than 1% of the population has it. So get it from the blood bank," Christine said, her voice sharp with worry disguised as impatience. "Money is no object. Whatever it costs." "Mrs. Chen, this isn't about money." The doctor stood up and Tyler noticed how tired he looked. "We've checked our blood bank and we've contacted every hospital in the state. We don't have this blood type available right now. We've put out an emergency call, but what?" Christine's voice rose. "There has to be someone. We did find one match in our donor registry," the doctor said carefully. "A woman named Lorraine Matthews. She's in the city, about 40 minutes from here. We've called her, left messages, but she hasn't responded yet. She might be at work or her phone might be off. We're trying to reach her through every contact we have on file." Tyler's mind was already racing. Where does she live? What's her address? "Tyler, that's private information," the doctor said gently. "And even if we could tell you, what would you do?" "I'd go there. I'd ask her myself. I'd beg her if I had to." Tyler's voice cracked, and he didn't care any more about holding back tears. "Please, just tell me where she is." Christine put her hand on Tyler's shoulder. "Honey, we can't just show up at a stranger's house. That's not how things work." "Then how do things work, Mom?" Tyler spun to face her. "We just sit here and wait? We just hope she checks her phone? Dad could die." The word hung in the air between them, heavy and terrible. Christine's face crumpled and she pulled Tyler into a hug. "They're doing everything they can," she whispered. But Tyler could hear the fear in her voice. Behind them, Tyler heard another voice, smooth and confident. "Christine, I came as soon as I heard." It was Richard Zhao, his father's business partner and oldest friend. Richard was dressed in an expensive suit even at this hour, and he looked calm in a way that felt wrong given the circumstances. "Richard, thank God." Christine released Tyler and turned to him. "Jonathan collapsed during your meeting. His heart? They need blood, but they can't find it. I heard." Richard's expression was serious but controlled. "I've already made some calls. I have people reaching out to private medical suppliers, international blood banks. If this blood type exists anywhere, we'll find it." "There's a woman here in the city," Tyler interrupted. "Lorraine Matthews. She has the right blood. We just need to find her." Richard looked down at Tyler as if noticing him for the first time. "Let the adults handle this, Tyler. These things take delicate negotiation." Something about the way Richard said negotiation made Tyler uncomfortable, like they were talking about buying a car instead of saving his father's life. He thought about the stories his dad used to tell him, about growing up without much money, about working his way up from nothing. His father had become wealthy, yes, but he'd always told Tyler that money was just a tool, not a measure of a person's worth. Tyler waited until his mother and Richard were deep in conversation with the medical team. Then he slipped away. He knew his mother's phone password because she'd made it his birthday. He pulled her phone from her purse, which she'd set on a chair, and quickly searched for the hospital's contact information. Within minutes, he'd convinced a sympathetic receptionist that he was calling on behalf of the doctor and needed to verify the address for Lorraine Matthews. "I really shouldn't," the receptionist said, her voice uncertain. "But if it's for Dr. Morrison and it's an emergency..." "Okay, she's listed at 2847 Riverside Avenue, apartment 3B. Tyler memorized the address and hung up. Riverside. He knew that area. His driver, Miguel, had taken a wrong turn there once, and Tyler remembered his mother locking the car doors and telling Miguel to hurry through. She'd said it wasn't safe, that it was where those people lived. Tyler had felt ashamed then of his mother's words, and he felt ashamed now remembering them. But none of that mattered. What mattered was that Lorraine Matthews was there and his father was dying here. Tyler found Miguel in the hospital parking lot, sitting in the black sedan, scrolling through his phone. Miguel looked up, surprised. "Tyler, is everything okay?" "Your father, Miguel, I need you to take me somewhere. Right now? Please." Tyler climbed into the back seat before Miguel could protest. "Does your mother know about this?" "Miguel, my dad is dying. There's a woman who can save him, and nobody else is going fast enough to find her. Please, I'm begging you." Miguel looked at Tyler in the rearview mirror, and Tyler saw the exact moment he made his decision. Miguel had been with their family for 5 years. He'd driven Tyler to school every morning, listened to him complain about homework, celebrated with him when he made the basketball team. Miguel knew Tyler, really knew him, in a way that most of the adults in Tyler's life didn't. "Where are we going?" Miguel started the engine. "Riverside Avenue, 2847, apartment 3B. Miguel's eyebrows rose, but he didn't argue. They pulled out of the parking lot and into the evening traffic. Tyler watched the city change as they drove. The clean, modern buildings near the hospital gave way to older structures, then to neighborhoods where the streetlights didn't all work, where the sidewalks were cracked and uneven. His phone buzzed. His mother. He declined the call. "She's going to be worried," Miguel said quietly. "I know, but if I'd asked permission, she would have said no. She would have said to wait for Richard's people to handle it, to do things the proper way. But there isn't time for proper, Miguel. There's only time for now." They pulled up in front of a tired-looking apartment building. The brick was faded, and one of the windows on the first floor was covered with plywood. But there were flower boxes on some of the windowsills, and Tyler could hear children playing somewhere nearby. People lived here. They had lives here. This was their home. "I'll wait here," Miguel said. "You sure about this?" Tyler wasn't sure about anything except that he had to try. He got out of the car and walked to the building's entrance. The directory next to the door had some of the name labels missing, but he found 3B, L. Matthews. He pressed the buzzer and waited. Nothing. He pressed it again, longer this time. Still nothing. A woman came out of the building carrying 2 grocery bags and talking on her phone. Tyler caught the door before it closed and slipped inside. The hallway smelled like cooking spices and cleaning products. He climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, his heart racing again, but for a different reason now. Apartment 3B had a welcome mat that said "Blessed Beyond Measure" and a small wreath made of artificial flowers on the door. Tyler raised his hand to knock, then hesitated. What was he going to say? How do you ask a complete stranger to save your father's life? He knocked anyway. 3 firm raps. He heard movement inside, footsteps, then a woman's voice. "Who is it?" "My name is Tyler Chen. Please, ma'am, I need your help." "It's an emergency." The door opened a crack, the chain still attached. A woman looked out at him. She was probably his mother's age, but looked more tired. Her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her clothes simple and worn. Her eyes were cautious but not unkind. "Tyler Chen, how do you know my name? How did you get this address?" "The hospital has been trying to reach you." "You're Lorraine Matthews, right? You're in the donor registry?" Her expression shifted from confused to understanding to something like resignation. "Oh no, someone needs blood. My father. He's dying. You're the only person in the whole city who can save him. Please, ma'am, please come with me to the hospital. I'm begging you. Please save my dad." And then, right there in the hallway of that worn-down building, Tyler Chen did something he'd never done before in his 12 years of private schools and country clubs and carefully controlled emotions. He dropped to his knees in front of the stranger and cried like his heart was breaking, because it was. Lorraine Matthews stood frozen in her doorway, looking down at this well-dressed boy crying on his knees in her hallway. Everything about him screamed money, from his designer clothes to his expensive watch, from the way he spoke to the desperation that said he'd never had to beg for anything in his life until this moment. She should have been annoyed. She'd just gotten home from her first job at the laundromat. She had exactly 45 minutes before she needed to leave for her evening shift at the grocery store, and her daughter Keisha had texted twice asking when she'd be home to help with her homework. This was not the time for whatever this was, but there was something about the raw pain in this child's voice that reached past her exhaustion, past her plans, past every logical reason to close the door and pretend she'd never answered it. "Get up, honey," she said softly, unlatching the chain and opening the door wider. "Come inside. You can't be kneeling in my hallway." Tyler stumbled to his feet, wiping his face with his sleeve. "Will you come? Will you help him? Slow down. Come in and tell me what's happening." Lorraine gestured him inside her small apartment. It was clean but cramped, nothing like what Tyler was probably used to. The furniture was mismatched, the carpet worn thin in places, but there were photos on every surface. Pictures of smiling children and family gatherings, life captured and treasured. Tyler followed her in, and Lorraine could see him taking in her home, his eyes adjusting to this world that was so different from his own. She wondered what he thought of it, then decided she didn't care. This was her home and she wasn't ashamed of it. "Now start from the beginning," Lorraine said, sitting on the edge of her couch. "What's your father's name and what hospital?" "Jonathan Chen. He's at Metropolitan General. He collapsed a few hours ago. His heart stopped and they got it beating again, but now he needs blood. Your blood. The doctor said you're the only match in the whole donor database." Tyler was talking fast, the words tumbling over each other. "They tried calling you, but you didn't answer. And I couldn't just wait, so I came here because there isn't time. And I know this is crazy, but please, I need you to save my dad." Lorraine's mind was racing. She'd signed up for the donor registry 5 years ago, at a community health fair. They'd told her she had a rare blood type, but she'd never been called before. She'd honestly forgotten she was even on the list. "Tyler, I'm going to be honest with you. I want to help, but I need to think about this. I have responsibilities. I have kids of my own who depend on me. I'll pay you," Tyler blurted out. "My family has money. Whatever you need, we'll pay you." Lorraine held up her hand and something in her expression made Tyler stop talking. "That's not what I meant. I'm not asking for money. I'm saying I need to understand what I'm agreeing to. How long will this take? Is it dangerous? I have 2 kids and a mother who depend on me. If something happened to me, what would happen to them?" Tyler's face fell. He hadn't thought about any of that. He'd just thought about his father, about saving him, about fixing the problem. It hadn't occurred to him that helping might cost this woman something too. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't think. I was just scared." Lorraine's expression softened. "I know you are, baby. Let me make some calls, okay? Let me figure out what this involves and then we'll talk." She called the hospital and spent 10 minutes talking to a doctor, asking questions that Tyler didn't even understand. How much blood? What were the risks? How long would recovery take? Could she still work afterward? Tyler watched her face as she listened to the answers, trying to read what she was thinking. When she hung up, she sat quietly for a moment, staring at her phone. "Ma'am?" Tyler's voice was barely a whisper. "It's going to take several hours," Lorraine said slowly. "They need a lot of blood because your father lost so much. It's going to make me weak, tired, maybe dizzy for a few days. I have 3 jobs, Tyler. If I can't work, I don't get paid. And I've got bills that don't care why I'm tired." Tyler felt something inside him breaking. Of course, this woman couldn't just drop everything. She had a life. A real life with real problems that didn't disappear just because his family had money. "I understand," he said, standing up to leave. "Thank you for your time." "I'm sorry I bothered you." "Sit down," Lorraine said firmly. "I didn't say no." Tyler froze, then slowly sat back down. Lorraine leaned forward, her hands clasped in front of her. "My daddy died when I was 9 years old. He had a heart attack, and we lived in a place kind of like this where the ambulance took 30 minutes to come instead of 10. By the time they got him to the hospital, it was too late. I remember my mama crying in the hallway, and the doctor telling us there was nothing they could do. I remember thinking that if we'd lived somewhere else, somewhere nicer, Maybe he would have lived. She paused, and Tyler saw tears in her eyes, but she didn't cry. She just kept talking. I swore that day that if I ever had the chance to save someone's father, someone's husband, I would do it, because I know what it feels like to lose that person. I know what it does to a family. She looked directly at Tyler. So yes, I'll come, but not because of your money. I don't want your family's money, Tyler. I'm coming because you're a child who loves his father and I can help. That's all. Tyler didn't know what to say. He wanted to thank her, wanted to tell her she was amazing, wanted to promise her everything would be okay. But all that came out was, thank you. Thank you so much. I need to make some calls first, Lorraine said, standing up. I need to tell my kids where I'm going. Is there someone waiting for you downstairs? My driver, Miguel. He's in the car. Lorraine nodded like having a driver was the most normal thing in the world and went to make her calls. Tyler heard her in the kitchen, her voice low but urgent. Keisha, baby, listen. Mama has to go help someone at the hospital. No, I'm fine, I'm not hurt. I need you to pick up your brother from basketball practice. Yes, I know I promised to help with your presentation, but honey, there's a man dying and I'm the only one who can help him. I'll be back as soon as I can. I love you too. There was another call, this one to someone named Beverly. I'm not going to make it to my shift tonight. I know, but this is a real emergency. Can you cover for me? Thank you, Bev. I owe you big time. When Lorraine came back, she had changed into clean clothes and grabbed a worn jacket. She looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with this moment and everything to do with a life of working multiple jobs and never quite having enough. Let's go, she said simply. They rode back to the hospital in Miguel's car. Miguel kept glancing in the rearview mirror, clearly surprised that Tyler had actually found the woman and convinced her to come. Lorraine sat quietly, looking out the window at the city passing by, at the neighborhoods changing from worn to wealthy as they drove. Do you do this often? She asked Tyler. Go on rescue missions? Tyler shook his head. I've never done anything like this before. My mom is probably freaking out. She's called me like 20 times. You should call her back. Let her know you're okay. Tyler picked up his phone and saw the string of missed calls and increasingly frantic texts. He called his mother. Tyler James Chen, where are you? Christine's voice was sharp with fear and anger. The hospital said you left and Miguel is gone and nobody knows where you are. I'm okay, Mom. I'm coming back to the hospital. And I'm bringing Lorraine Matthews with me, the woman who can save Dad. There was a long silence on the other end. Then you did what? I found her. I asked her to help and she said yes. We're almost there. Another pause. We'll discuss this when you get here. But Tyler, is she really coming? She's right here in the car with me. Then hurry. Your father, he's getting worse. The call ended and Tyler felt a new wave of fear. What if they were too late? What if his father died before they got there? He's going to be okay, Lorraine said quietly as if reading his mind. Have faith, baby. We're going to make it in time. When they pulled up to the hospital, Christine was waiting outside with Richard and several hospital staff members. She rushed to the car as Tyler got out, pulling him into a fierce hug. Don't you ever scare me like that again, she whispered. But Tyler could hear the relief in her voice. Then Christine's eyes moved to Lorraine, who was getting out of the car slowly, looking at this scene of worried, wealthy people like she wasn't sure she belonged in it. You're Lorraine Matthews? Christine asked, and Tyler couldn't quite read his mother's expression. Yes, ma'am. I'm here to help if I can. Christine's face did something complicated. Tyler could see her struggling with something, some feeling or thought she didn't want to have. I thank you for coming. We're very grateful. But Richard stepped forward and his expression was much less welcoming. Ms. Matthews, before we proceed, we'll need to discuss compensation. Our lawyers will draw up an agreement, and of course we'll want to ensure everything is properly documented. Lorraine's jaw tightened. I don't want your money or your agreements. I came here to help a dying man, not to negotiate a business deal. Nevertheless, Richard continued, his tone smooth but firm. For legal purposes, we need to— Richard, stop. Christine's voice was sharp. This woman came here to save my husband's life. The paperwork can wait. A doctor appeared, the same one from earlier. Ms. Matthews, thank you so much for coming. We need to get started immediately. If you'll follow me, we'll get you prepped. Lorraine nodded and started to follow the doctor, but Tyler grabbed her hand. Thank you, he said again. I'll never forget this. Lorraine squeezed his hand. Your daddy's lucky to have a son who loves him this much. You hold on to that. Then she was gone, disappearing into the hospital with the medical team, and Tyler was left standing with his mother and Richard, the cool night air blowing around them. That was incredibly reckless, Richard said, looking at Tyler with disapproval. You had no business going to that neighborhood alone. Anything could have happened. But it didn't, Tyler shot back. And now Dad has a chance. Christine put her arm around Tyler. Let's go inside. Your father's been asking for you. As they walked back into the hospital, Tyler thought about Lorraine, about her cramped apartment and her tired eyes, about the way she'd said yes even though it would cost her. He thought about his father's stories of growing up without money, and for the first time, he really understood what his father had meant about some things being more valuable than wealth. Somewhere in this hospital, a stranger was giving her blood to save his father's life, and she wasn't doing it for money or recognition or gratitude. She was doing it because she understood what it meant to lose someone you loved, and she didn't want another family to feel that pain. Tyler made himself a promise right then. If his father lived, if they got through this, things were going to be different. He was going to be different. He was going to remember that not all superheroes wore capes. Some of them wore worn jackets and worked 3 jobs and still found room in their hearts to save a stranger's life. Some of them were heroes who'd never even know how much they'd changed the world by simply saying yes. The donation room was cold and sterile. All white walls and beeping machines. Lorraine sat in the medical chair watching as the nurse inserted the needle into her arm. She'd given blood before at community drives, but never like this. Never this much, never with so much riding on it. This is going to take several hours, the nurse explained, her voice gentle and professional. You're going to feel tired, maybe dizzy. We'll be monitoring you the whole time, and if you feel faint or sick, you tell me immediately. Okay? Lorraine nodded. I understand. You're doing a very brave thing, the nurse added, adjusting the tubes. Not many people would do this for a stranger. Brave. Lorraine didn't feel brave. She felt scared and a little overwhelmed and worried about her kids at home. Keisha had sounded upset on the phone, though she'd tried to hide it. Tomorrow was her big presentation at school, the one she'd been preparing for weeks. Lorraine had promised to help her practice tonight, had promised to be there, but here she was instead, watching her blood flow through plastic tubes toward a man she'd never met, a man whose son had cried in her hallway. The door opened and Tyler slipped inside. The nurse looked up, frowning. Young man, you're not supposed to be in here during the donation. Please, Tyler said quickly. I just want to sit with her. I won't get in the way. I promise. The nurse looked at Lorraine, who nodded. It's okay. He can stay. Tyler pulled a chair close to Lorraine's side and sat down. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sounds were the soft beeping of the machines and the hushed activity in the hallway outside. How long have you been doing this? Tyler asked suddenly. Working 3 jobs, I mean. Lorraine was surprised by the question. About 5 years now, since my husband left. Before that, I worked 2 jobs and he worked 1 and we barely made ends meet. After he left, well, I had to pick up the slack. That must be really hard. It is what it is. You do what you have to do for your kids. Lorraine closed her eyes, feeling the pull of the machine, the strange sensation of her blood leaving her body. What about you? What's your life like? Tyler thought about it. I go to private school. I play basketball and take piano lessons. We have a big house with a pool. My mom plans charity galas and my dad works all the time. I barely see him most weeks. Sounds lonely, Lorraine said quietly. Tyler looked at her, startled. Nobody had ever said that before. Everyone always said how lucky he was, how privileged, how easy he had it. But lonely? Yeah, that was exactly what it felt like sometimes. It is lonely, he admitted. Dad's always traveling or in meetings. Mom's always busy with her social stuff. And everyone at my school. They're nice and everything, but it's like we're all just going through the motions. Nobody talks about real things. Real things like what? Like being scared or sad, or not knowing what to do. Everyone just pretends everything is perfect all the time. Tyler picked at a thread on his jeans. When my dad collapsed today, everyone was talking about doctors and procedures and blood types, but nobody was talking about how terrifying it is. How I thought I was going to lose him, and I haven't even really had him, you know. He's always there, but not there. Lorraine opened her eyes and looked at this boy who had everything and nothing at the same time. You want to know something? Rich or poor, everybody's scared of losing the people they love. That's the one thing money can't protect you from. Is that why you came? Because you know what it feels like? I came because when I was your age, nobody could save my daddy. But I can save yours. So I am. She smiled tiredly. Simple as that. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Tyler noticed Lorraine was getting paler, her breathing a bit more labored. Are you okay? Should I get the nurse? I'm okay, honey. Just tired. This takes a lot out of you. Tell me about your kids, Tyler said, trying to distract her. What are they like? Lorraine's face lit up despite her exhaustion. Well, my daughter Keisha, she's 15. Smart as a whip. She wants to be a lawyer, can you believe that? She's got this fire in her, this determination. She doesn't let anything stop her. And my son Devin, he's 13. He's got a good heart. Loves basketball like you wouldn't believe. Plays every chance he gets. Do they know you're here? Yeah, Keisha was upset. I was supposed to help her practice for her presentation tonight. She's been working on it for weeks, and I promised I'd be there. Lorraine's voice caught a little. Being a parent means making hard choices sometimes. Disappointing your kids when you don't want to, but doing what's right anyway. She'll understand, Tyler said. You're saving someone's life. I hope so. But at her age, all she knows is her mama broke a promise again. Lorraine closed her eyes. It's the again that hurts the most. Tyler thought about all the times his father had missed his games, his recitals, his parent-teacher conferences. How many times had his dad said next time or, I'll make it up to you? Too many to count, I think. Tyler said slowly, that your daughter is going to remember this night for the rest of her life. Not because you weren't there for her presentation, but because you taught her what real sacrifice looks like, what helping others means even when it costs you something. Lorraine opened one eye and looked at him. You're a wise kid, you know that? My dad always says that understanding the value of sacrifice is what separates good people from great ones. I never really understood what he meant until today. Hours passed. The nurse came and went, checking Lorraine's vital signs, bringing her water and crackers. Tyler stayed, sometimes talking, sometimes just sitting in silence. He told Lorraine about his favorite teacher, about the time he fell during a basketball game and broke his wrist, about his dog Biscuit who had died last year. Lorraine told him about her mother, who had diabetes and needed insulin that cost more than Lorraine could sometimes afford. She told him about the laundromat where she worked mornings, how she knew all the regular customers by name, how Mrs. Patterson always brought her coffee on Thursdays. They talked about movies and music, about favorite foods and places they'd like to travel. And somehow in that cold medical room with machines beeping and blood flowing, a friendship formed between two people who had no business being friends, who lived in different worlds and should never have met. Finally, after what felt like forever, the nurse said, Okay, I think we have enough, Ms. Matthews. You did beautifully. As the nurse removed the needle and bandaged Lorraine's arm, Tyler realized his hand was cramping. He'd been holding Lorraine's other hand for the last hour without even realizing it. Thank you, he whispered again. Stop thanking me, Lorraine said with a weak smile. I'm starting to think that's the only phrase you know. The nurse helped Lorraine sit up slowly. Take your time. You're going to be dizzy. We'll keep you here for observation for a bit, make sure you're stable before you go home. But Lorraine shook her head. I need to see if it worked. I need to know he's okay. Ms. Matthews, you need to rest, please. Lorraine's voice was firm despite her exhaustion. I need to know that this mattered. The nurse looked like she wanted to argue, but something in Lorraine's expression stopped her. Okay, but you're going in a wheelchair, and if you show any signs of distress, we're bringing you right back here. They wheeled Lorraine out of the donation room, Tyler walking beside her. The hallway seemed too bright after the dim room they'd been in. Christine was there, pacing back and forth, and when she saw them, she rushed over. Is it done? Did you get enough? They're transfusing it now, the nurse said. It will take some time to see if it's working. I want to see him, Lorraine said. I want to see Jonathan. Christine's expression flickered with something Tyler couldn't quite read. Surprise? Discomfort? He's in the ICU, family only. Mom, Tyler said firmly. She just spent 4 hours giving her blood to save Dad's life. She's family now. Christine looked at her son, then at Lorraine sitting exhausted in the wheelchair, then back at her son. Finally, she nodded. You're right. Come on. They went to the ICU, through the heavy doors that said authorized personnel only. Jonathan's room was at the end of the hall, all glass walls and monitoring equipment. Tyler could see his father lying in the bed, looking smaller somehow, vulnerable in a way Tyler had never seen him before. Christine stayed outside. but she nodded for the nurse to wheel Lorraine into the room. Tyler followed. Jonathan was awake but barely. His eyes were closed, his breathing assisted by an oxygen mask. But as they entered, his eyes fluttered open. They were hazy with pain and medication, but they focused on Lorraine. "Are you—" His voice was barely a whisper. "Are you the woman?" Lorraine wheeled closer to the bed. "I'm Lorraine Matthews. Your son came to my house and asked me to help you." "So I did." Jonathan's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to thank me. You just have to get better. You have a good son there. He loves you something fierce. You make sure you stick around for him, you hear me?" Jonathan looked past Lorraine to where Tyler stood in the doorway. Their eyes met, and Tyler saw something in his father's face he'd never seen before. Not just gratitude, but understanding. Recognition of what had happened, of what his son had done, of what this stranger had sacrificed. "Tyler," Jonathan whispered. "Come here." Tyler moved to the bedside, and his father reached out with a handful of IV lines and monitors. Tyler took it, careful not to disturb anything. "I'm sorry," Jonathan said, his voice cracking. "I'm sorry I haven't been there. I'm sorry I've been so focused on work, on money, on building an empire that I forgot to build a relationship with you. I'm sorry you had to go through this alone." "I wasn't alone," Tyler said, his own tears falling now. "Lorraine was with me." Jonathan looked back at Lorraine. "You saved more than my life today. You showed my son what real goodness looks like. What real sacrifice means. How can I ever repay that?" Lorraine smiled tiredly. "You can repay it by being the father your son deserves. By being there for him. By remembering that life is short and people are what matter, not things. Can you do that?" "Yes," Jonathan whispered. "Yes, I can do that." The nurse came in then, checking Jonathan's monitors. "His numbers are improving. The transfusion is working. He's stabilizing." Relief flooded through Tyler like a wave. His father was going to live. He was going to be okay. "Now," the nurse said, turning to Lorraine, "you need to rest. We're going to get you set up in a room for the night. Make sure you're stable before we send you home." "I need to get home to my kids," Lorraine protested weakly. "Your kids need their mother to be healthy," the nurse said firmly. "You stay here tonight, let us monitor you, and you can go home tomorrow." Before Lorraine could argue further, Tyler's phone buzzed. It was a text from his mother. "Tell her we'll take care of everything. Her kids, her rent, whatever she needs. Just make sure she rests." Tyler showed the text to Lorraine. "My mom says to tell you she'll take care of your kids tonight. Whatever they need." Lorraine looked uncertain, like she wanted to argue but didn't have the energy. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, just for tonight, but I'm going home first thing in the morning." As the nurse wheeled Lorraine out of the room, she reached out and squeezed Tyler's hand one more time. "You take care of your daddy, and he better take care of you." "He will," Tyler said. "I promise he will." 3 weeks had passed since that night in the hospital, and Tyler couldn't stop thinking about Lorraine Matthews. His father was home now, recovering well, spending time with Tyler like he'd promised. They'd played basketball in the driveway yesterday, just the two of them, and his dad had actually laughed when Tyler beat him. Really laughed. The kind that came from deep in his chest. But every time Tyler felt happy about his father being better, he thought about Lorraine going back to her 3 jobs and her cramped apartment. Back to the life she'd left for a few hours to save a stranger. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel fair. Tyler sat at his desk, his laptop open in front of him, searching. He'd started by looking up Riverside Neighborhood, the place where Lorraine lived. What he found made his stomach hurt. The schools there were rated among the worst in the state. The local hospital had closed 2 years ago. Unemployment was high. Crime was higher. He clicked on another article. This one was about funding disparities between school districts. Schools in wealthy neighborhoods like his got thousands of dollars more per student than schools in poor neighborhoods like Lorraine's. His school had a state-of-the-art science lab. According to this article, Keisha's school had textbooks from 2005 and a leaky roof. Tyler thought about Keisha, how Lorraine had said she wanted to be a lawyer, how smart she was. How was she supposed to compete for college admissions when she was starting so far behind through no fault of her own? He opened another tab and searched for Devon's school. The basketball program had been cut last year due to budget constraints. Devon loved basketball. Lorraine had said he played every chance he got. But what chances did he have at a school with no program? The more Tyler researched, the angrier he got. Not at anyone in particular, but at the whole system. At the way some people got everything and others got nothing. And it all seemed to depend on what zip code you were born in. His father's company had a charitable foundation. Tyler knew because he'd been to some of the fundraising galas. They gave money to arts programs and medical research and things like that. Important things, sure, but what about the schools in Riverside? What about the kids like Keisha and Devin who just needed a fair shot? Tyler opened a new document and started typing. He wrote about the night Lorraine came to save his father. He wrote about her 3 jobs and her tired eyes and the way she'd said yes without asking for anything in return. He wrote about Keisha's dreams of being a lawyer and Devin's love of basketball. He wrote about the schools and the closed hospital and the broken streetlights. Then he wrote about what could be done. Better funding for schools, after-school programs, healthcare clinics, job training, all things his father's foundation could support if they chose to. He spent hours on the letter, revising it over and over until it said exactly what he wanted it to say. Then at the bottom, instead of signing his name, he wrote, "From a concerned citizen who believes we can do better." He found the email address for the foundation's board of directors and hit send before he could talk himself out of it. Meanwhile, at the Chen house, Jonathan was having his own reckoning. He sat in his home office, the same office where he'd spent countless nights working instead of tucking Tyler into bed, and he couldn't concentrate on the reports in front of him. He kept thinking about what Lorraine had said in the hospital. "You have a good son. He loves you something fierce. You make sure you stick around for him." And he'd promised he would. He'd promised to be different, to be better, to be the father Tyler deserved. But what did that actually mean? How did he do that? His business partner, Richard, had been calling all week, wanting to discuss new acquisitions, expansion plans, investment opportunities. Jonathan had been avoiding the calls. For the first time in his career, making more money didn't seem important. It didn't seem like the point. Christine walked into the office carrying a cup of tea. "You've been sitting here for an hour staring at nothing," she said, setting the cup on his desk. "What's going on?" "I've been thinking about Lorraine," Jonathan said. "About that whole neighborhood. Chris, did you know the hospital there closed? People have to take 2 buses to get medical care now." "That's unfortunate," Christine said carefully, "but it's not really our problem." "Isn't it, though?" Jonathan turned to face her. "We live in the same city. We're part of the same community. How is it not our problem?" Christine sat down, sighing. "Jonathan, I know you're feeling grateful because that woman saved your life. And we've thanked her. We sent her flowers and a nice card. We even offered her money, which she refused, by the way."
"What more do you want to do?"
"I want to fix it. The whole broken system. I want Keisha to have the same opportunities our son has. I want Devin to be able to play basketball at a school with an actual program. I want mothers like Lorraine to not have to work 3 jobs just to survive. That's very noble, but you're one person. You can't fix poverty." "No, but I can help." "We can help," Jonathan leaned forward. "Our foundation gives away millions of dollars every year. What if we redirected some of that money to places like Riverside? What if we actually made a difference in people's daily lives instead of just attending fancy galas and congratulating ourselves for caring?" Christine was quiet for a long moment. "You really want to do this? I almost died, Chris. And the person who saved me was someone I never would have met in my normal life. Someone who lives in a world I've been pretending doesn't exist. That has to mean something. It has to change something." Upstairs, Tyler heard his parents talking. He couldn't make out the words, but he heard the intensity in their voices. He hoped his father was serious about changing things. He hoped it wasn't just the near-death experience talking, something that would fade once his father felt better and got back to normal life. The next day, Tyler was called out of class. His father was at school, waiting in the principal's office, and Tyler's first thought was that something was wrong. But when he got to the office, his father was smiling. "Come on, we're going somewhere." "I have class," Tyler protested.
"I can't just leave. I cleared it with Principal Howard."
"This is important. This is education too, just a different kind." They got in the car, Miguel driving, and headed across the city. Tyler watched the neighborhoods change, watched them get poorer, more run down, until they pulled up in front of a school with cracked basketball courts and faded paint. "This is Riverside Academy," Jonathan said. "This is where Keisha and Devin go to school." They walked inside, and Tyler was struck by how different it was from his school. The hallways were dimmer. The paint was peeling in places, and there was a bucket in one corner catching drips from a leaky ceiling. But the kids looked the same as kids anywhere, laughing and talking and rushing to class. The principal, a tired-looking woman named Mrs. Jackson, showed them around. She talked about budget cuts and teacher shortages, about outdated textbooks and broken computers, about dreams she had for these kids if only they had the resources. "They're smart," she said fiercely. "Don't let anyone tell you these kids aren't smart. They're brilliant. They just don't have the same advantages, the same opportunities. But give them a chance and they'll soar." Tyler thought about Keisha wanting to be a lawyer. He thought about Devin playing basketball in a school with no program. He thought about all these kids full of potential, being held back by things that weren't their fault. "What would you do?" Jonathan asked Mrs. Jackson. "If you had unlimited resources, what would this school need?" Mrs. Jackson laughed, but it was a sad sound. "That's a nice dream, Mr. Chen. But dreams don't pay for new textbooks or fix leaky roofs." "Humor me," Jonathan said. "What would you do?" So Mrs. Jackson told them. She'd fix the building, make it safe and warm and welcoming. She'd hire more teachers, reduce class sizes. She'd bring back the arts and sports programs that had been cut. She'd get new computers, modern science equipment, updated textbooks. She'd start after-school programs for kids who needed help or just needed a safe place to be while their parents worked. Tyler listened to it all, imagining what this school could be, what these kids could become. On the drive home, Jonathan was quiet. Finally, he said, "You sent that email, didn't you? To the foundation board." Tyler's heart skipped. "How did you know?" "Because you're my son, and you have your old man's stubborn streak. And because the board forwarded it to me this morning, asking if I knew anything about it." "Are you mad?" Jonathan shook his head. "I'm proud. You saw a problem and you tried to do something about it. That's exactly what I should have taught you to do years ago. So what happens now? Now I call an emergency board meeting. Now I tell them we're going to make some changes to how we use our foundation's money. Now I probably lose some board members who won't like the new direction." Jonathan smiled. "And now I prove to my son that I meant what I said about being different." That evening, Tyler got a video call from his father's office. It was Lorraine, looking surprised and a little confused. "Tyler, your father had someone from his office call me. They said something about wanting to talk to me about my neighborhood, about some kind of initiative. Do you know what this is about?" Tyler grinned. "I think Dad wants to help. Like really help. Fix some things in Riverside." "He doesn't need to do that," Lorraine said quickly. "I didn't save his life expecting anything in return. We know. That's exactly why we want to do it. Because you didn't ask for anything." Tyler leaned closer to the camera. "How's Keisha? And Devin?" "They're good. Keisha aced her presentation, by the way. She told me to tell you, thank you for the advice you gave me that night, about teaching her what sacrifice looks like. She's going to be an amazing lawyer someday." "I believe she will," Lorraine said softly. "I just hope she gets the chance." "She will," Tyler said with certainty. "I promise she will." After the call ended, Tyler sat in his room thinking about promises. His father had promised to be better, to be present. Tyler had promised himself to remember what Lorraine taught him about real heroism. And now he was promising that kids like Keisha would get their chance. Promises were easy to make. Keeping them was the hard part. But for the first time in his life, Tyler felt like he was part of something bigger than himself. Something that mattered beyond test scores and basketball games and getting into the right college. He thought about the anonymous email he'd sent to the foundation board, about his father's promise to make changes, about Lorraine going back to work the day after saving his father's life because she didn't have a choice. Things were going to change. Tyler was going to make sure of it. And if there was one thing he'd learned from Lorraine Matthews, it was that sometimes the biggest changes started with one person deciding to help, no matter the cost. One person saying yes when it would have been easier to say no. One person seeing another person's pain and deciding it mattered. One person making a difference. Even when nobody was watching, even when there was nothing to gain. That's what heroes did. And Tyler was determined to be that kind of hero, even if he never wore a cape or got his name in the paper. He was going to be the kind of hero Lorraine had been for his family. The kind who helped simply because someone needed help. The kind who made the world just a little bit better. One choice at a time. 4 months later, Lorraine stood on the sidewalk in front of a building she didn't recognize, holding a cream-colored envelope with her name written in elegant script. The invitation had arrived at her apartment yesterday, asking her to come to this address on Riverside Avenue. Her street, but a part of it that had been vacant and boarded up for as long as she could remember. Except now it wasn't vacant. Now there was a beautiful new building with large windows and fresh paint, with people going in and out, with children's laughter echoing from inside. Are you going in, or are we just going to stand here? Keisha asked, shifting her weight from foot to foot. She'd dressed up for this, whatever this was, wearing her church dress and the earrings her grandmother had given her. Devin bounced on his heels, unable to stand still. Come on, I want to see what this is about. Tyler texted me yesterday and said it was going to be amazing. Tyler had been texting Devin for months now. At first, Lorraine had been uncomfortable with it, her son becoming friends with a rich kid from across town. But the boys had connected over basketball, and their text conversations were full of trash talk about whose jump shot was better and whose team was going to win the championship. More than that, Tyler had convinced his parents to pay for Devin to join a youth basketball league, one with real coaches and tournaments. Devin was thriving, his confidence growing with every game, and Tyler came to watch sometimes, sitting in the bleachers with Miguel, cheering louder than anyone else in the gym. Okay, we're going in, Lorraine said, pushing open the door. Inside was even more impressive than outside. The lobby was bright and welcoming, with comfortable chairs and plants and artwork on the walls. There was a reception desk where a young woman sat smiling, and hallways leading off in different directions with signs pointing to different areas. Medical clinic, job training center, youth programs, community kitchen. Lorraine, you made it! Christine Chen appeared from one of the hallways, looking different than Lorraine remembered. Less stiff, more genuine. She was wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual designer dress, and her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. Mrs. Chen, what is all this? Lorraine looked around, overwhelmed. This, Christine said, gesturing widely, is the reason we invited you here. Come on, there's something you need to see. She led them down one of the hallways, past rooms where people were working on computers, past a large kitchen where volunteers were preparing meals, past a clinic where a doctor was seeing patients. At the end of the hall was a large open room filled with people, and at the front was a stage with a curtain covering something large. Jonathan and Tyler were there, both dressed casually, both wearing matching nervous expressions. When Jonathan saw Lorraine, he walked over quickly. Lorraine, thank you for coming. I know this must seem strange, getting a mysterious invitation. More than strange, Lorraine admitted. Jonathan, what's going on? What is this place?